Politihoot! And now, from a lonely little corner of the Bronx.
No, I don't know J-Lo. A house divided cannot stand. That was Abe Lincoln. Lincoln was rated as the #1 top most effective president of all time in all of the important surveys. It goes from him all the way down to the bottom and you know who. Lincoln was in charge of a country that was split in two in a bloody civil war, the North versus the South, brother against brother. You would think that the United States had learned its lesson by then. Or did we?
We all have to recognize the common threat right now is these radical Democrats who I think have embraced communism, Marxism. It's very, very scary.
That was Abe Hamada. He was running for Congress in Arizona at the time. He lost. But look at his language. He's calling the other side very, very scary. We've got to look at the language that politicians are using these days. It's almost like that propaganda effort from Japan during World War II with Tokyo Rose. That was meant to demoralize the Allied troops. Who's trying to demoralize the other side now?
But the sick and twisted nature of left-wing extremists who now make up the bulk of the Democrat Party is also a motivating factor for most Americans to ditch the American left.
Ugh. We've gone from very, very scary to sick and twisted. It only gets worse.
Understand that Donald Trump is at his most effective when he's on the battlefield of the culture wars, when he's appealing to grievance and hatred. And here we see him trying to go back to that, but it's kind of the late in the career, people call it the Fat Elvis moment. I don't know if that's right.
Oh my God, it's the battle of the culture wars. But look, we're supposed to be going high when they go low. Thanks, Michelle. But to call him Fat Elvis? That's an MSNBC commentator with his nice suit and tie. Fat Elvis. Remember Kellyanne Conway? She was Trump's right-hand woman, the one that coined the phrase alternative facts. Well, her ex-husband, George Conway, very smart guy, he's here to explain the current discourse in our American conversation.
But it's also all about opposition. It's opposition. If Biden wants to help a country, therefore it's bad, and that's basically Trump's view. If Biden wants to have border security, we have to stop it. Right. We have to. It's all just this oppositionism. You're defining the right-wing media defines conservatism by saying, well, these other people are for X. We have to be. We can't be for it. And, even if it's the national interest of the United States, that's it.
Right. George Conway is a very smart guy. My neighbor was in his high school class and said he was valedictorian. All she could talk about was how smart he was. So look at our discourse now. You've got right against left. It's almost brother against brother or sister against sister. It's 1863 all over again. What can save us from this?
Things fundamentally that maybe our kids won't have as bright a future as we did. People are worried about whether they're going to be able to retire. Folks worry about whether their child's going to be able to afford a college education. And if they do, the mountains of debt that are going to hamper them in buying that first home or starting a business. People are concerned about climate change and preserving the incredible natural beauty that California represents. People are worried about a whole range of particular issues, but I think what I said yesterday, and I deeply believe, is that there's no set of problems, there's no set of issues that we can't solve if we're working together and we're true to the traditions that are best in America. But the problem is that during these times of uncertainty, it's always tempting for politicians, for their own gain, and for people in power, to to try to see if they can divide people, scapegoat folks, turn them on each other. Because when that happens, you get gridlock and government doesn't work and people get cynical and they decide not to participate. And when people don't participate, then that vacuum is filled by lobbyists and special interests, and we get into a downward spiral where people get more and more discouraged and they think nothing's going to make a difference. And that, unfortunately, has been a spiral that we've been on for the last couple of years.
Barack, you put your thumb on it. That's what's really worrying the American people. After toiling and toiling and toiling away, do we still have enough money to put food on the table, to pay our rent, pay our mortgage, put our kids through school, pay for health insurance? That's what America really wants.
The only way we reverse that cycle of anger and division is when each of us as citizens step up and say, we're going to take it upon ourselves to do things differently.
You mean we had the power all along? Shades of Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz. This right-left conundrum, it's just dragging us all down and we can't move forward. But how do we do that? So in a few moments, we're going to hear from Dr. Gail Sahar. She's the author of the book, Blame and Political Attitudes. She's done the research and she knows her stuff. So let's have a little talk.
I want to talk about culture wars today. The right, the left, everything that's going on in between. So we brought a wonderful guest today, Gail Sahar. She's the author of this book, Blame and Political Attitudes, all about the culture wars that we are currently experiencing. So it drives me nuts, Gail. The right, the left. I really believe that the only way this country is going to save itself from this mess right now is that we start to work together. But reading your book was kind of interesting. You don't think there's such a divide between our culture?
Yeah, I don't. I think the book is really about a lot of similarities in the way Democrats and Republicans or liberals and conservatives think about political issues. So I think there are a lot of researchers now who think we're more affectively polarized, meaning resentful of each other, than we are really issue polarized, meaning taking drastically different positions on issues. Most Americans are kind of moderate, pragmatic moderates. But yeah, I think that there is a culture war sort of going on, but I think it's largely driven by media and by politicians themselves.
So let me get this clear. You think we can meet in the middle?
I think that if we could tamp down the anger and fear to some degree, I think that, yes, I do think that there's a lot of overlap. When a lot of people, when they actually sit down and have a conversation about why they think the way they do about issues, they do find overlap. They do find commonalities. And at the very least, they understand how the other party thinks about it. But unfortunately, we just aren't finding those opportunities right now. Everything is so divided. We watch different news programs. We get different feeds on our social media. And increasingly, Democrats and Republicans don't interact with each other. So it's really, I think, that kind of emotional distance is, in my opinion, what's mostly driving the polarization.
Okay. So you said that you think that our issues are not that far apart, but I perceive that they are.
Yeah. I think what's happening is that politicians are kind of fixating on the couple of things that there are maybe drastic differences about. But take something like abortion, right? Most people say, oh, abortion is the most controversial, polarizing issue in the country. Most Americans are moderately pro-choice. Most Americans think abortion should be legal in some circumstances. But what we see is only characterizations of the people on the two extremes, right? People who say it should be illegal in all cases or should be legal in all cases. And so we're kind of ignoring the giant middle in most of the dialogue that you see in the media.
How giant is this middle?
Well, it depends on how you measure. And I'm talking about not necessarily people who call themselves, I mean, they may identify as Democrat or Republican, but my belief is that the two extremes are really a pretty small percentage of the people. And that, in fact, most people are kind of pragmatic. They think about what would be good for the country. I mean, most Americans are not really that fixated on trans issues or a lot of the things that are being brought to the fore by politicians. I think they use them because they scare people. But if you ask the average American, I don't think most Americans are spending their nights worrying about whether trans women are using the women's room, right? And that's sort of what politicians are doing. They're sort of making it about those things. But I think for the average American, if you ask them, those are not the issues that they really think politicians should be focused on. They're much more worried about the economy and maybe immigration and things like that, but not so much the sort of culture war issues that we're really dwelling on right now.
You know, that could be true because when I walk down my block, I see Trump signs from people I like, from people I have intelligent conversations with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's been framed that the typical Trump voter is someone that with low economic status, low cultural status, all of that. But in your book, I found that the typical Trump supporter is someone that actually has a higher salary than average. Can you explain that?
Yes, I think it was really surprising because immediately after Trump won, a lot of the pundits were saying, oh, it's being driven by kind of uneducated working class people, right? I think we all sort of heard that. But the studies have revealed that their average income is in fact higher than the average American. However, they feel disadvantaged. So that one of the themes of the book is sort of what we think is true is more important than what is really true. They feel they're not getting their due in society, basically.
So wait a minute, say that again. No, because that's interesting.
Yeah, there are different ways of saying it. What I said was what we think is true is more important than what's really true. Or you could say perception is more important than reality. And so when they interview Trump supporters, they often say, I expected to have a bigger house now or a higher income. And the problem is other people are getting advantages that I'm not getting. And here I'm talking mostly about white Trump supporters, which is most Trump supporters are white. So it's more a perception that other people are getting advantages. It's not really that they're disadvantaged in terms of their economic status. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it's the old saying, politics is perception.
Exactly.
So how do you think that Trump, who might become president of the United States again, it's really close as we speak, how is he using blame? How is he trying to influence the perceptions of the typical voter?
Yeah, whatever one thinks of Trump, he is masterful at doing that. I think he sees, like a lot of really good salespeople, they see a need, they see an opportunity to influence people. And I think he saw that there were a lot of people who were relatively disaffected and felt like the country wasn't going in the right direction and that they didn't have enough money in their pockets, et cetera. And he provided scapegoats, basically. So it's sort of like, well, yeah, you're right. You're not getting your due. The problem is immigrants are coming, illegal immigrants are coming and taking your jobs, or Islamic terrorists are the problem. It's always somebody else. And often it isn't even only other regular people. He also goes after other politicians in that way. So he does this kind of populist thing that the problem is establishment politicians don't care about the average person. So he did this a lot with Hillary Clinton. That she's just an establishment politician. She doesn't care about you. I'm here to advocate for you. And I think that had real appeal for people.
Yeah. And so the people think, he's right. I'm not getting what I want. So it must be someone else. But let's look at the presidential debate that happened a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Did you not get a clawing feeling that this possibly can't be happening in your stomach when he started to talk about they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cat?
They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
And that's insane. So
it's surreal. I know.
Well, it's surreal.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, why are people still supporting him when I bet in their guts they also said no?
Yeah, I think a lot of people give him a pass. I think you're absolutely right. I think a lot of Trump supporters really actually do know that some of it is exaggeration. They say various things. I think there's a lot of stuff going on. There's one theory that people have a particular relationship with him. It's called a parasocial bond. That is because he was a celebrity for so long. I think particularly people of a certain generation who are old enough to remember The Apprentice and things like that. They feel almost as though they know him, right? And they say, well, whether or not what he says is true matters less than he just seems authentic. He says what he thinks. He says the thing that no one else will say. So it's as though the actual truth of the words don't matter as much as they're kind of feeling like he's the real deal. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that living in New York City most of my life, I've seen him around. I remember being at Shea Stadium at a ball game once, and he was standing outside the ladies' room screaming, "Marla! Marla!"
He was in the restroom.
No, he's outside. And,
I see. Okay.
Apparently
Well,
she was
funny.
taking too much time. And other things. But so people will give him a pass because they have these feelings that I know him or whatever, whether it's in the middle of Nebraska or it's in New York City.
Yeah, again, there are a number of theories about it. I mean, one explanation is also that people kind of say, well, yeah, he's a bit of a shyster maybe, but he's our guy, right? He's advocating for us. And it's like we may do for a loved one. We give him a pass sometimes if we don't agree with them. And I think the fact that he has managed to get such a devoted following, and the other piece I would say is that the hatred of the other side is so strong, so that if you really hate Democrats, you probably aren't going to criticize Trump because it would be like siding with the enemy. So I think it's that polarization, I think, is exaggerating things and making it so that and I can say, to be fair, I think it happens on the Democratic side too. If you think about it, people like maybe Kamala Harris does something we don't like, we might just say, well, yeah, everybody makes mistakes, or that's not what she meant. And so I think the problem of polarization is so great that people are really loath to criticize anyone in their own party.
Wow. As soon as you said that, I had a come to Jesus moment where I think I've done that.
Yeah.
I think I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where we make excuses. Confirmation bias, right? I want it to be true. And so it's true.
Yeah, I mean, even looking back to the Clinton days, right? When Clinton was accused of the relationship with Monica Lewinsky, a lot of Democrats, even feminists, were kind of saying, well, he's done a lot of things for women on the other hand, right? And so there are lots of examples of this kind of thing. We really tend to want to defend our own person. And we're not, I think it's a mistake myself. I think you can't have much standing if you only criticize certain people for doing it. Right. But unfortunately, it's happening across the board, I think, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah. Have you noticed? I mean, I listen to AM radio because I want to know how they're thinking and what they're thinking. And what's your take on that? How do you think the media is reinforcing this love of Trump?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a huge contributor. I mean, when we were young, we had Walter Cronkite, or news people that just read the news, right? And whether or not, I'm not saying there was no bias, but they didn't take a strong position on things. And now, as you well know, right, all of these media outlets are completely polarized themselves. And you don't have to watch Newsmax or Fox News even. I haven't listened to AM radio, but I'm assuming it's about the same.
Yeah.
They're driving it, right? They come up with these outrageous examples of the terrible things one side or the other is doing and demonize the other group. And I think it just makes people dig in their heels more and more. Well, maybe Trump isn't honest, but at least he's not running a pedophile ring out of a pizza joint in Washington, D.C.
Right.
There's
Pizzagate.
conspiracy. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I teach that particular piece of propaganda to my classes, Pizzagate, and how this seemingly well-meaning man got struck with a loaded rifle and went up to stop that pedophile ring.
Right.
In the basement of a pizza joint in D.C. that didn't even have a basement.
Right. Conspiracy theories are so powerful. And Trump has been a master of floating conspiracy theories since long before he was in politics. So you remember when he was saying Obama didn't, because he wasn't born in the U.S. I mean, it's just been one thing after another. Just so many things. I mean, I don't even know where to start. Ted Cruz, wasn't it Ted Cruz's father, he believed, was involved in the Kennedy assassination? And Again, it doesn't matter that these things aren't true. If people hear it often enough, they begin to absorb it and believe it. And then they've been alienated from these candidates, right? So he's really very good at that. So that repetition, repetition, repetition. Oh, it must be true. Yeah. There's a phenomenon in psychology called the mere exposure effect. That is, you get exposed to something multiple times, you begin to feel more favorable toward it. It's a strange thing. And it works for even abstract shapes or letters in another language that you don't recognize. If you flash them on the screen often enough, people start having a positive association.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I think that is probably part of the way this works.
So in essence, you're saying that we're duped a bit.
I would say so.
Wow. Okay. Hold on just a minute, Gail. I think we have a caller calling in. Oh, okay. All right. So this is Kathy from Stamford, Connecticut. So Kathy, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, this is Kathy. This is such an interesting conversation. Just want to say thanks.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate the sentiment. Oh, Gail, you up for another one? We've got Jason. Jason, you want to come on the air? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. Yo, number one, you people come on here and you're sitting around, you're always talking about Trump, don't do this. That's the problem with you libtards and Democrats and all of you. You don't know what the real deal is about Trump.
Okay.
You don't. You just come on here with your mamby-pamby, tree-hugging stuff. You don't know what the deal is, okay? You don't know, okay? Who's stopping everything that's happening at the border? Trump. He's going to take care of that. Why? Because Kamala, Kimaruma, whatever the hell Harris's name is, okay, what is she doing? She's letting them all in, okay? She let in Cyclopses, Mexicans, she's letting in Haitians, she's letting in the Mr. She's letting in Smurfs in the KGB, okay? Who's going to put the end, who going to finish it up? Trump's going to finish it. He's saving us, okay?
Jason, you think that like aliens are coming across the border?
Yes, every day.
Oh.
Okay, they come in because I sometimes watch clips of Alex Jones on YouTube. Okay, number one,
I'm sure you do.
They come in pods, and when you go to sleep, they take over. And next thing you know, you're not you anymore. You're a pod, so that makes you an alien. Even though you're an American, you're still an alien.
Okay, so thank you so much for those insightful comments, Jason. We've got to move this along.
See, that's why the election was stolen in the first place. Because Nancy Pelosi connected dots. Nancy Pelosi, who's the second cousin of Charlie McCarthy.
Sorry, Gail.
Is also known to be a part of the organization known for libtards.
Oh, God, I think there's a button here. Thank you so much, Jason. It's been really insightful.
Okay, we have time for one more caller. Go ahead, sir.
I just want to say, straight off the bat, I want to say that Trump is beautiful. He's actually the best. He's always said the buck stops here. I think that's so true.
That was Harry Truman.
It's all the fault of those Mexicans, let me tell you. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime.
Wait a minute, I think this might be.
Trump's done more for the Mexicans than Caesar Milan.
What is this?
Barron. The name's John Barron.
That was great.
So, Gail, it seems like we're being manipulated, we're being duped, unless we take really strong due diligence to find out what's going on with us. And as I said, the most important thing is that we, the people, get back together and work against fight the power, fight the powers that be. Is there any hope left for us?
I think there is. I mean, I remind myself that this is not the first time we've been polarized, and lots of other countries have gone through polarization and recovered from it. So I think world events happen. You never know what's coming in the future, and these things often will die down. But there's also hope in that there's a lot of research suggesting that people's minds can be changed. That is, if you actually are presented with information that is factual and that might change your view a bit, it does influence people. So in the right circumstances, I think people can be really quite reasonable. I feel in some ways like the media and politicians don't give regular people enough credit. They imagine that they're totally responding emotionally. But my work suggests people actually do think about issues. They have rational reasons often for their beliefs. I mean, conspiracy theories aside, but in general. And if you actually sit down and talk to them, they can explain to you why they feel one way versus another. And I have actually observed people even interacting with the other side in reasonable ways. Even in my classes, I've had that. Strongly against students and very liberal students talking and actually saying, I may not agree with you, but now I understand better why you think what you do. And I think that's what we need. I don't think we want everybody to agree. It's a democracy. We should have different opinions. But I think where it's problematic is the kind of hatred that's developed. And I know that sounds exaggerated, but I really
No.
think it's to that point.
No, I don't think it's exaggerated at all.
Bloodthirsty terrorists, savage gang members. They'll walk into your kitchen, they'll cut your throat.
If you could give us any piece of advice, what would you say?
I guess I would say try to remember critical thinking. That is I think all of us, and I mean this for everyone, to not just accept what someone says because they're in your party, to really think about what is the evidence that this is true. And I think we should demand more of our politicians. I don't think we should mindlessly accept everything they say. I think a lot of problems would be solved if people would ask more questions, if reporters would ask direct questions, if politicians would consider listening to the other side a little more. I think all of those things would really help. And to really tone down the emotion and remember that, like you said, I mean, many of the people who have a different view from you are probably perfectly nice people. They're probably some of your neighbors. I know that's the case where I live. And some of them would give you the shirt off their back. And I think if we could set aside politics and not have it be quite so primary, people used to have a lot more interactions with people in the other party, and that's changing really rapidly. And I think it would be nice to put a stop to that.
Okay. So I'll hold a block party for everyone here. Right? Wear your best Trump or Harris t-shirt.
I'm very
Okay. Well, it's absolutely wonderful talking to you, Gail. And I just want to show everyone we can get more, really read deeply into what Gail has told us today. I know I have marked this book with my yellow highlighter and all of that because it's a great read. But one more thing, every time we have a guest on Politihoot, we'd like to promote their favorite charity. So your favorite charity is?
UNRWA, it's the UN Relief Workers Organization, work organization, and they are providing help in Gaza for people who are suffering very greatly, and they're desperately in need of funds. So if whatever your orientation, whatever you're feeling about the Middle East, I think none of us like to see people suffering. And so if you have it in your heart to help, I think it can mean the difference between life and death for people.
Oh, great. And for all of you that want to give to UNRWA, what you can do is go to unrwa.org. Okay. It's unrwa.org. And there's a donate button up in the top right corner. Okay. So again, I want to thank you very much, Gail Sahar, political psychologist and author of Blame and Political Attitudes.
Thank you so much, Jackie. It was fun.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.